The HRVG people, they're very visual. Your style, this works for you. Daz's style, that works for him based on how our own minds function. And like you said, we can learn the other styles, but we have our primary, the way our brains are wired, that I think finding the right style for you, I think makes a big difference.
It does, and understanding the type of brain someone has,
Yeah.
and then being able to make a choice that is based on that. Because when I first started talking about the aphantasia a couple of years ago, people started commenting and saying, "Thank you so much," because
Yeah.
I have an aphantasia brain, and
Yeah.
I just thought I could never do remote viewing. I
Hmm.
love it. I'm so interested, but I just wrote it off as something I'll never be able to do
Right.
because I didn't really understand it. But now they have a better understanding of it. And
Yeah.
so anyway, that's what I decided to do with a system of having a completely different type of experience in a paper-driven remote viewing session
Hmm.
that is based off of that experience to recognize that a remote viewing is actually taking place right from the beginning, and then being able to, which is, I'm going to be honest with you, the most difficult part, the most difficult part is to get to the bottom of that page and say, there's no remote viewing taking place. I have to abort. I got to abort.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most difficult. Everything else
Yeah.
is easy. Everything else is
Yeah.
easy because you don't want to stop.
Yes.
You want to get through it. You want to get your feedback. You whatever. You think, oh, okay, well, maybe nothing's happening here, but maybe something will happen on the next page.
Yeah.
That's not. That's not what this is about. No. If it's not happening in the first page, I have to be. It's an honesty barrier.
Yeah.
It is an honesty barrier. I have to be so honest with myself that I can say, it's a remote viewing is not happening. I have to abort and come back later. That is so difficult to do.
Yeah.
Sounds easy.
Yeah.
It sounds easy to be
No,
like, oh, this ain't happening. I'll come back. No, 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 no.
but you're all
You're
set for your
going and you
session.
don't want to stop.
No, because you sit there and however you prepare for your session, you go through that process. I'm usually thinking like, I can't wait to. I do my remote viewing first thing in the morning at like 5 or
Yep.
6 a.m. So the night before, I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm going to do a session in the morning. I get up, I meditate, I get my stuff all set up, I'm ready to go.
You're ready to
And there's
go.
times where it's like, and I've just started doing this. I'll get maybe 2 pages in, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right, and I've stopped because I don't want to. It's so defeating when you spend an hour going through it and you're trying to force the connection, and you're just not making it.
That's
And
right.
that's when you start making stuff up, really. Whereas other times, and I always remember you were doing a session, you weren't looking the purpose was trying to understand, I think, how your mind works, but you were looking at the San Francisco, one of the bridges in San Francisco, and there was a fire on it or something. You
Yeah.
did this ideogram and you're like, oh, that was it, that was a good one. Like, you're just talking to yourself about how good it hit you. And the more I practice, I have those moments where the second I get the ideogram, I don't even need to like probe and add, like it's just there and I can't write it down fast enough. Like, those are the sessions that I'm after. I don't
Yeah.
always get them, but I think I'm starting to understand what you're saying. And like, there's not a remote viewing taking place. And I love that you have that discipline where just stop and come back when you can have a stronger session.
Very difficult to do. And
Yeah.
it's, and the, that's the process because the teacher, and
Yeah.
it's a real tough one. It's a tough one. Doesn't
Yeah.
care about your feelings and all that kind of stuff.
No,
Doesn't care.
no.
And so if I'm going through it, and I'm at to get to the bottom of that entry entry proprioception, and I'm like, yeah, maybe something was there. Maybe, yeah, maybe something. Yeah, I think something was there. I'm gonna go into entry two, and I get through that, and then I go and I check the feedback, and I knew it. I,
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't
And
happening.
then you wasted a target.
It's just another. It's another uh, reaffirming moment
Hmm.
that the pursuit is true, which is my ultimate question: is a remote viewing taking place or not?
Right.
Because every time you
Right.
sit down with a pen and paper, that doesn't mean a remote viewing is going to happen. All it
No.
means is you're sitting down with a pen and a paper. That's all it means,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And some people even say you can't know if you're on or off. You just have to go through the session. I never agreed with that. Well, I did,
Right.
and when I first heard it, because I respected the guy who said it, I don't respect it anymore because it's not true. It's just
Yeah.
not true. I believed it,
Yeah.
but it isn't true. And so
Yeah.
the focus then became, I want to know when a remote viewing is and is not taking place because all I want is the truth. I just
Right.
want the honest truth. And if it's not, I have to condition myself to be so honest that I stop right there, right
Right.
there. And I don't
Right.
go forward, because it's like an initiation. I call it an
Yeah.
initiation.
Hmm.
In the old days, when you had to do something to be initiated, you had to
Yeah.
overcome something,
Right.
Now all you
Right.
got to do is give them $250 and they give you a certificate. You don't have to do
Right.
anything.
Right. Well, you have the certificate, you're right, but that doesn't make you a remote viewer. You've had a
That's
little bit of
right.
training, but
That's right.
what separates, everyone from the pack are the people that stay at it and that ask those questions and that go through that hardship. Anybody can do the 1 weekend course and say, "Oh, I hit a couple targets," and then
Yeah.
go make some YouTube videos about it. But it's when you keep pushing through and have those moments. I mean, I've talked to you over the years, like, dude, I'm off again. This sucks. And you feel like crap about it because you just can't seem to hit a target and staying through and figuring out how your mind works, how your mind, yeah, the peaks and the valleys, dude. You
Yep.
have to go through it. You said it,
Yep.
I bring it up a lot. Our first interview, you told me it'll chew you up and spit you out. It's gonna, you gotta,
Kick your butt all the
yeah,
way across the room. Yeah.
yeah. And it
Mercilessly.
has.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's unforgiving.
it is.
So go get your certificate, but you have to put in the time. And I say this quoting a lot of the things that you've taught me over the years, and now I'm living it. I'm starting to understand what that feels like, the
It's
good
kind of
and the
like
bad.
the whoever it was that he would do these courses, and at the end of the course they had the bricks and the hot coals, and you had to
Yeah,
walk over the hot. That's an initiation.
right,
That is an
right.
initiation. Can you do it?
But that just gets you into the beginning, though. The initiation means you're ready to really begin your training,
Yeah,
right?
but you got to
And that's
walk
where it
across those
starts.
coals first.
Yeah,
And are you going to be able to do that? You know,
right,
not everybody
right.
will. Not everybody will.
No, no.
And that's why it's an initiation.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what it is
yeah,
about. That is what it is
yeah,
about. And this
yeah.
is no different than that. Just it's just a lot easier on the feet.
But not on the mind, though, Edward. Not on the
No,
mind.
no, not on the ego, because, like I say,
Yeah,
the honesty barrier is that is
yeah,
the most difficult thing I've come across.
yeah,
Everything
yeah.
else seems easy
Because you're
compared.
being honest with yourself,
That's
and the
right.
ego it wants to see the connection. It wants to see the hit, the target contact, or whatever experience you're looking for. We want to see that. We put an hour into it, and especially when you're new, you're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
But when you start reaching a point when you start saying, well, did I really do this? Or am I just getting lucky? Or am I just speaking so generally that this will fit any target?
Right.
You really have to, and some of my sessions are, as I look back, oh, that was pretty general. That could have been 10 different targets. Um, but if you want to improve, you have to have those honest discussions with yourself.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
With real targets, you know,
Yes. Yes.
with
I love the
with
woo, but
which falls under the quote unquote target can and will
yeah.
be anything,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
alleviates a lot of the pressure of, oh geez, oh, okay, I did four targets, were buildings, so the next one's probably going to be an ocean scene or something. You can try to guess, and then
Yeah.
maybe get lucky every once in a while. But that's not that's meaningless. That's totally
Yeah.
meaningless. You know,
But that's hard. Um, Understanding that it could be anything in the beginning, I guess, is easy. But then I think you reach a point where you do start to think about, well, what is this target going to be? And I think that's why it's important, not even knowing who's tasking the targets.
right,
Because every tasker, when I'm learning, has certain qualities to how they're tasking things and what they look for.
right.
And if you know who it is, oh, it's probably going to be an ET target, or it's probably going to
That's
be this kind of target. So there's something to that.
Don't even get me started on that. Yeah,
Maybe
don't
we
get
should
me
keep that
started.
conversation
Yeah, we'll leave
offline,
that conversation. No, I like
yes.
that's why I like the quote unquote targets that most remote viewers hate are the ones that I love the most.
Yeah.
I want the mountain.
Yeah.
I want the
Yeah.
road. I want the boat in the water. I want the lighthouse. I want
Yeah.
the Empire State Building. I want the pack of buffalo across the plains. I want the wrench on a table. I love those
Yeah.
because when I'm going through this, there's there's the goal is to have a dimensional sensation that is true to whatever that is. And then that's how I know a real remote viewing is taking place. And in that realm, I don't care what the target is. I don't care
Right.
if I'm going to provide 50 pages of space alien stuff and everybody's going to go, wow, kiss his ass and all that kind of stuff. I don't
Right.
care about any of that.
Right.
That's freaking meaningless. That means
Yeah.
zero to me. Zero.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
dimensional sensation is worth a gazillion. There's no money. Money doesn't even, there's no money that could say that's worth that much. It's priceless.
Right.
It's a priceless thing, you know? And
Before, go ahead. Finish your thought.
no, now I'm on my soapbox now.
Well, I mean, I think because I know you so well, before we started this, I was just, I take a little bit of notes of what I want to talk about. And one of the things I said to myself is that before we get into this, I was going to ask you a question to set up that exact speech that you just gave right there. Because I know how important it is for you to say, like, those are the targets that you prefer. Because I want to have a woo conversation tonight, talking about Mars, talking about
Yeah,
you. But I also know how important it is for you to stay grounded in reality. And the Edward Reardon name is not the guy who goes and looks at UFOs and Mars and woo. And I think it's important to you. From what you've told me, it seems like it's very important to you to make sure there's that distinction that you want to be able to verify your targets and have that experience of even the most simplest of targets. You seem to enjoy every target we do, even when the rest of the team would be like, "Oh my God, what the heck was this?" You're like, "Well, I
yeah,
enjoyed the session. This was a great session."
right.
You always say it. Rarely have I,
That's right.
maybe once, I don't even remember the target where you're like, "I didn't like that one," but you like the experience.
Sasquatch, probably
You were mad about squash.
not happy
That
with
was a good one.
Sasquatch.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so I'm glad that you got that out. And I think it's important. And I have to say, I appreciate you and everything that you've shared. We've talked about earlier how you put this stuff out. I mean, it has an impact. I always say this to you, but it's had an impact on me. I would love to get lost in the land of woo. I just enjoy it. I think it's interesting. I
So do
hear
I.
your voice all the time, dude. I hear it in my head as someone who's trying to become a better remote viewer. And I know I need to make sure I'm doing not just, I got to do more verifiable targets and I need to
That's
stack the
right.
deck with the verifiable targets. So the woo will be that much more valuable and meaningful to me,
That's
even
right.
though that's what I enjoy doing or those other ones.
That
But
that's why that's why most people in the viewing community do that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like candy, you know.
yeah,
It's
but
a
it's
sugary
important.
treat.
It is, but
But it'll give you
I'm,
cavities too if you eat too
well,
much of
that's
it.
just it. It can. And
Cavities in your brain.
you have to recalibrate. And I think and I'm again, thanks to the things that we've talked about, I'm learning to enjoy even those basic targets,
Hmm.
because there's always something that I can just go explore about it, whatever it is, no matter how boring it may seem. There's always
Absolutely.
something that my mind will find interesting that I can focus on and
That's right.
expand upon on it. And I think that's
I
important.
I think so too. It's funny. I put a video out many years ago, and I said remote viewing results are like bird shit. And what I meant by that was a bird flies over your car and drops a nice big turd on your hood.
Right.
Most people are going to look at that and say, that's just bird crap, man.
Yeah.
But I don't want to look at it that way. What kind of bird was it?
Right.
How high were they?
Yeah.
What did they eat?
Hmm.
How long did it take for that food to process? Where's the nest? Is it a male? If you, how old is it?
Yeah.
What are all the components that are in that? What makes it turn white? I mean, it's just endless,
I can
endless.
hear I can hear you, and to the best of my knowledge, you've never done a target like that. But I can hear an hour-long conversation with you in my mind of you describing that process and it sounding fascinating, and then finding out it
100%.
was bird shit. But just the way you would
Totally.
break it down, because the way information comes through to you, and then you're a storyteller, the way you can tell that story and piece it together. Because back to what we started with, it's so interesting to you. You
That's
find
right.
it's of interest of this process of a bird shitting on a car.
That's
In that
right.
experience, you find value and interest in it, and
That's
I
right.
think that's significant. Yeah.
Well, you know what my last name translates to?
No,
Reardon. It means royal poet.
does it really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so fitting. That is so. I mean, your words are poetic. They really are, in the way you express yourself. That's all. That fits. That really makes a
It's
lot of
just
sense.
so crazy.
Turning bird shit into gold.
That's it, man.
All right. Well, look, we've spent about an hour, I think, incredibly valuable talking about the Reardon method and the values of just stage one. I mean, that we're just scratching the surface of stage one, really. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I'd like to move on if that's okay with you. If there's anything else you
Sure.
want to say
Yeah.
about the
No,
Reardon
no, no,
method,
no, no, no. That's I got out what I needed to say about it.
I'm glad.
Which is
That's
beware if you're going to try. It might screw you up.
Listen, dude, you give the warnings, you do, and they're true. Worth it. I think it's worth the hardship, but you really have to know what you're getting into, or you have to be willing to get into something hard, I should say, because you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Be willing to do something hard and stick with it. But I want to shift gears here,
Okay.
and you just touched base on it briefly here, but I want to talk about some of the Mars data that's come through and how it correlates to other work that we've done.
Yeah.
Um, and I know typically you're not a fan of UFO targets, correct?
I only if they're extremely rare.
Right.
Well, I appreciate one. If it's becoming a pattern, then I don't want to even be involved.
Right.
Because just like with what I'm talking about here, I want to know that actual remote viewing is taking place
Yeah.
and not I'm indulging my fantasies or somebody else's fantasies, or whatever, So if it's rare and it's like, whoa, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
You got me. This Mars thing
Yeah.
I wasn't
This was a
expecting that.
rock, right? You were looking at a rock, some kind of formation that was found, right?
Formation in
Yeah.
a crater.
Yeah. Which is verifiable. That much of it is we know that there's a formation there in a crater in Mars, and
Yeah,
everything else you got, obviously,
yeah.
it'll
Totally
take some time to
unexpected.
verify.
That was
Yeah.
why I enjoyed that so much was that it was an unexpected thing. And it wasn't like we were doing Mars targets every month.
No, I
So
don't
that's
think.
what made it really
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
Can you talk about, so you were tasked to view this formation within a crater on Mars. Obviously, you were blind to what the target was until the target was revealed to you.
Correct.
What kind of data did you bring back? I mean, it wasn't just, hey, this is a rock on a foreign body, right?
The way that one started out, I enjoyed every element of that session. Um, in the beginning of the session, I'm in this, the environment is very dusty and all those kind of components. I'm like, yeah, I'm in the middle of a desert here or something like that.
Right.
And but there was a stairway, a passage going down into a room, and that was wouldn't go away. It wouldn't leave. It had the quality to it for me to continue to explore it. And in my mind, I'm like, this is like reminding me of like an Egypt target or something like that. Maybe it's an Egypt target or something like that. Um, because it had that kind of sense to it. Sandy, and there's stairs that go down, and there's pictorial things on the walls and that kind of thing. And it's like, man, it's like some kind of an Egypt thing. And um, but then something very surprising happened as I'm going into that, which was that there was some kind of uh, attack from above. Either I don't know, was it a man-made thing or was it natural? And it was like a comet struck, and then I had and which totally surprised me. And then I was like, maybe this is Mars, and I wrote that down. Maybe this might be Mars. Because I'm like, Egypt didn't get hit with a comet. They kind of took the Egypt thing because it was like, wow, man, this is like a comet hit. And um, so I put all that in there, and then I just kind of kept going with this underground thing and kind of what that was about. And what was really, really probably the most interesting thing about that, the sense of that place was that, it was like a safe place. People could go there to, maybe safe from comets hitting or striking or something like that. But it was this sacred place that held a very strong sense of honor, which isn't something that I typically explore,
Right.
remote viewing kind of thing. But it was like these people really they have a very strong sense of honoring something, which was like an overwhelming sense, and nothing like I'd ever felt before in a session. And those people, and I drew what I perceived the person looked like, and again, I was like, this is like a Mars. This is like some kind of a Mars thing. And some of the ideas, like with that comet hit, I was like, this is bringing up this idea of like the blue kachina, which is a Native American story.
Yeah.
And but the blue kachina is like a harbinger of the end of days. It's like end of a civilization. And that was the sense, like this was the end of a civilization here, and their civilization is gone. And yeah, it was really fascinating. The to go into a place where this with this sense of honor, and I'm not talking like you're in like a military base and they're like, oh yes, yes sir, honor.
Right.
It wasn't like that. It was more like
Like reverence.
a reverence,
Yeah.
with a cloak of honor around it,
Yeah.
and it was moving. It was moving, and it's funny because with these people, as I was kind of going through what I sensed these people were like, I drew there would be like a governing council of people, or a leadership, and I drew that out, and afterwards I counted them, and there were 9,
Really?
and I was like, oh man, am I back on this council of 9
Council
stuff?
9 again. Yeah.
Which was a Mars connection with that too.
And that was Revelation, which I want to touch base
Yeah.
on shortly, tied into this
Yeah.
session.
And I was like, wow, man, because it was an interesting thing how it happened that way. And I was like, because like I said, afterwards, I had to count them. Like, oh man, there's 9 of them. Oh, okay, here we go. And
Do you
so
Do you think that's
That's cool.
significant? Be like, I mean, we've talked about this. I feel like every one of our interviews is just expanding upon an ongoing dialogue that we've been having. There's that thread there because it seems to be, maybe I'm finding connections that don't really exist, but it seems that there's a thread in your work. You have several threads going on, but one of your threads is this stuff with the Council of Nine, possible AI technology, the consciousness expanding, globally, all of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just
Yeah.
a random coincidence that you keep getting sent to targets that bring back this data?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I think, if I had to sit down and really contemplate it and look at it in a more esoteric way,
right.
uh, I'm not opposed to the notion that I'm going through some ancient memories
Yeah,
of some kind. And I mean, I get emotional just saying that. I feel
yeah.
emotions swelling up in me.
I feel it too.
And that if I'm going to go into that esoteric realm and look at it that way, I have no problem saying that.
Yeah,
When I come back into my groundedness and say, I can let me get back to what, I gotta partition that so I can stay grounded and do this other stuff. But if I'm going to hang out there, that is what it feels like to me. And and it's not that it felt that way in the beginning. It's feeling that way more now.
it's afterwards when you
Yeah,
start to piece it together and you start to
yeah,
see how it. I've. This is why I think I was always drawn to you, is because I have a very similar feeling with this type of work and this storyline, I should say. So I understand completely. Like when that in the session, you're just writing stuff down, you're going through it. It's when you go back and get the feedback and start to process, and then you start to recognize, oh, I did this target. That's why I reached out to you. Like this ties into this target, and we can connect it to that target. And
yeah,
I think at a minimum, it's just an interesting conversation to have and to explore. But
yeah.
spiritually, it feels important to me,
Right.
to keep unpacking this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. On the spiritual side of me looks at it that way.
Yeah.
And then with the experiences that I've had for the past 30 years, I can kind of I know what that can lead to. It can kind of lead to some things that are maybe can be a little bit less grounded. So then I have to kind of partition that and get back into the grounded side.
Yeah.
Because I would just go and hang out there forever too.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a fulfilling, maybe is the word, place to be, right?
It
It's
is.
interesting,
It
but we
is.
still
Yeah.
have to exist here.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
that's fascinating, and I love that aspect. But I still have to go to work every day. I have to raise my kids.
That's
That's
right.
not going to pay my
Yeah.
bills. That's an important part of my life. But you're right. There has to be a partition to ground you back in that reality.
Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a
But
nice, comfy place, and it's endlessly fascinating and all that. Yeah.
yes, it is. But stepping out of reality for the purpose of this conversation, right? Because
Yeah.
it's fun to explore. Um, what do you think this all means? Maybe that's a big question to answer right now. Let's tie it back to the Mars. Let's stick with this one
Yeah.
session right
Yeah.
now. So you're seeing nine people there. Obviously, you make the connection to your previous target, the Council Nine stuff we've talked about.
Hmm.
Overall, your impression is there was a society there, and they were destroyed by a meteor, and they had this. I mean, are they still alive? Did you get that impression? Were there any survivors?
No. No, I didn't. It
Okay.
it was a long gone. It was a civilization, as I termed it, that was once great. It was a
Yeah.
once great civilization that is no more, and that's how I put it. Um, but yeah, if we when we're having a conversation like this where we can explore that, yeah, I'd say
Right.
over that long arc, I'd say I'm okay to say, yeah, I feel like it's a memory coming back, ancient memory coming back of knowing that stuff, maybe
Meaning
being
you were
there.
connected to it in the past, like
Yeah,
directly related to you. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And as a result, it comes up, it comes out.
Yeah.
with maybe a certain level of understanding of it, you
Yep.
know. But
Yeah.
in a long arcing in a long arcing memory, not like one that I'm talking about and thinking about every day,
No.
but for whatever reason, the universe conspires for someone
Yeah.
to put together a target, and that one allows it for some memories to come out, you know, and it may be something along those lines. I feel okay saying that it's a very strong probability.
There's a sadness there. It's fascinating, but I feel a sadness when I think about some of that sometimes. Like I'm always drawn to that topic, but there's a sense of sadness there
Yeah,
of something that's gone. But it sounds like seeds of it lived on. Um, I think still exists in people today, in some of us out there. And I think I'm remembering a data point. It was something I did in a similar type of session where it was like, the story's been long forgotten, yet it will still come out. It'll still be recovered, or it needs to be recovered or maintained, something along those lines. And that's what it feels like, is that, gone but not forgotten. There's a way to recover that. And maybe, now is the time that we're living in those times, right? It's always the end times, but now we're living in those times where that information is valuable to people. I mean, I feel inspired when I hear stories like that, very
yeah,
spiritually grounded when I hear that stuff, not reality based. But
yeah, yeah.
so,
So yeah,
so tie this. Go
go
ahead. I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I,
Go
I was
ahead.
I was going to make a connection now to, you were tasked, and we talked about this on our last podcast. You were tasked to look at the rapture, and lo and behold, you ended up with Mars data. And I remember very distinctly you said, what's going to happen basically is it sounded like the Mars spiritual people are going to go back, and the Earth people are going to stay, and there's going to be a split, which will then ease a lot of the tension here on Earth. Am I getting that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, you are getting that correct. Yeah,
That
yeah,
just feels significant to what we just said.
yeah.
You
Right.
know?
It's like uh, it's like if you have um, a zoo and you got tigers over there
Hmm.
and you got gazelles over there,
Right.
they ain't gonna get along.
No.
This one wants to eat the other,
Yeah.
uh, and so there's always a tension there. But if you put the tigers over somewhere else, then that tension's gone. And
Yeah.
that was the feeling. That was the feeling of that. Like here, we're always this is like there's some alien mindset
Yeah.
that is anti-human or oppressive,
Yeah.
and then on the other end is the other side that's like I'm pro-human and I don't want to oppress anyone.
Right.
I want to lift people, or I just don't want to harm anybody. I just want to live my life. I just want to live
Yeah.
my life.
Right.
And so it's like these two competing animals, and um, so and I don't, but I don't want to say like the if it's a Martian civilization that came here, they're automatically the bad guy.
Right.
But maybe they're just uh, advanced and frustrated with a lesser advanced
Yeah.
civilization. You get frustrated
Yeah.
if the baby keeps pooping in the diaper and you're like, there's a toilet right there, man. Come
Right.
on. I
Right.
told you 10 times go sit on the toilet. After
Right.
500,000 times of doing that, you may be just like, I might kill this baby.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe something along those, something kind of like that.
Or I mean, it sounds like the civilization was destroyed, but maybe they came here, is what it sounds like, right? Or their consciousness came here, and maybe Martian consciousness in earthly bodies, if that's what's happening, creates an internal just hardship,
Conflict. Yeah,
right? It's a different frequency. Possibly. I mean, I'm
yeah,
talking out my ass right now, but that
Could
is what
be.
it feels like.
Yeah, could be.
And that
Like
could create a
I'm
sense of
stuck in this
yeah,
body, you know?
yeah, like a sense of disharmony. Like it resonates just enough where it works, but
Yeah.
something which could reflect on that calling, right? To go
Yeah.
beyond, to go
The
out,
longing to
ser
get back into my
searching for
original
home.
body. Yeah.
Yeah,
Could be, it could be something like that. I mean, I'm not
yeah,
opposed to that kind of thinking,
right,
as a possibility.
right. And Elon's going to lead us home, right?
We might.
Yeah. You guys looked at him too, right?
We did. Yeah.
Was that released before I asked questions about it? That's something we put out.
Long time. Yeah. A couple of years ago.
Right. Did it come back with it came back he was enhanced, right? There was some ET stuff in that session, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I really, I remember my session for that one because um, there was a central person, but it was the people who were behind the central person
Yeah.
who um, were a lot more powerful than the central person. And
Yeah.
after I remember because when we did the debrief and we got the feedback, I was like, oh crap, maybe I don't like Elon, maybe I don't like him
Wow.
anymore,
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know about that. I just don't know. But it was the people, basically it was like, it's not just Elon, this maverick, you know,
Yeah.
his desire to go to Mars isn't just him.
Right.
He's probably got, I'm sure he does. And if that session is true, then the session would reflect it too. Maybe a group of others like him
Yeah.
that are pushing him to work harder and faster uh,
Yeah.
for maybe a purpose along those lines. Maybe
Yeah. It was bringing his
I don't
ear.
know what the hell they're going to go back to. They'd have to go and change the environment there to
He's
make it
confident.
happen.
He's driven to terraform. Now let's think about again staying in this esoteric realm. I mean, if we're spiritually driven, unlocking these past memories, right? Maybe he's Earth has now gotten to a technological point where we can go back and start the process of restoring the atmosphere. And
Right,
and some accounts, this is remote viewing data, but and conspiracy world, but that underneath the surface of Mars is inhabitable. And you had this stairwell going down, right?
that's right.
Subterranean.
Yeah,
Maybe there are survivors. I have read some sessions. I won't get into that now, but talking about survivors underneath the surface of Mars. So
yeah.
maybe that's a reality.
Well, hopefully someday somebody will find out.
That'll be some great feedback,
Would be, it
you
would be.
know?
But he's definitely driven,
Yeah,
and he's doing it. He's not just sitting around talking about it.
right.
So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Now that we're talking about it, and I think back on that session, I'm thinking now differently about that session now
Yeah,
because it's like, wait a minute, who were those people who
yeah.
were behind him? Maybe they are from there too, and they're like, we got to get the hell out of here.
You got to get
I
home.
can't take it
Yeah,
anymore. I
yeah.
can't take it. There's no intelligent life down here, man.
And there's so many fictional stories that play out in Hollywood that's a very similar theme, right? They came here, they're in hiding, and they just want to get back home, and it's a
Yeah,
struggle to get back there. Um,
yeah.
wow. I'm reminded of with the Hellfire group that I'm part of, Daz's group, where we do, we look at a lot of woo targets. So that's my caveat in terms of front loading. We know it's woo, and I was the tasker for this one project that we did, and the viewers knew that I was the tasker. So there's a little bit of front loading going on there. So take that caveat with a grain of salt. But I tasked them to look at Reiki energy on Dr. Usui back in 1921 when he received Reiki. I wanted to look at psychic energy and see what that was. And just about all of them brought back data that tied into Mars. They named it as Mars, or they named it as a foreign planet. They named it as a red planet, a desolate planet. And they all talked about energy and these tiny particles. And some of them called it nanoparticles, and some of them described what almost seemed like mushroom spores. and this intelligent energy. And it sounded like, in summary, that it was this old technology that ended up coming here. I can't remember all
Right.
the other details. The video will come out soon. Um, I didn't expect, I had zero in my, like, I did not expect to get Mars data, alien ET data when I set that up. I expected either we're going to learn about energy, or, as part of me always wondered with Reiki, is the story made up? I believe Reiki works. I use Reiki all the time, but the story is a fantastic story. Is the story legit, or do they just tell the story to sell, the process? I didn't expect Mars and nanotechnology at all from multiple
Yeah.
viewers. It'd be one thing if it was one person, but multiple
That's
people
pretty
wrote the same thing
fascinating.
back.
Yeah, it's
It
pretty
was a
fascinating.
really cool results that'll take. I mean, I didn't even analyze everything. There's just no time to go through all of that data, but
Sure.
um, hearing now your story and the timing of it too, because I just finished this project a couple weeks ago, and then hearing your story and then tying it into the other things.
Yeah,
Um, Again, it's that thread that I think we keep following and pulling into.
that's right. Get
You know,
together every once in a while and kind of piece it,
Unpack it,
tie the thread and
yeah,
a little further.
and see where it goes. Which, going back to the first conversation